Hey everyone, James from TDB here bringing you another Inbetweenisode. Today I am going to be talking about the 1,000 plus sessions that I have logged on my.teadb. So here going to show you some quick screenshots if I remember to include them of it. And I think right now I have 1,011 sessions logged. And of those, a good amount of them are raw, but we'll get into that in just a second. So, throughout the blog of TDB, I've done a variety of things. One thing that I did, I think in 2020, the beginning of 2020, before the pandemic had hit, is I did kind of a measurement, just tracking my sessions and seeing how certain teas did on my speed test. So I thought it'd be interesting to kind of compare basically what I'm doing on the speed test with my.teadb, which is great for tracking these sorts of things, versus what I was drinking back in 2019. Of course, it's not exactly one-to-one. Things are a little bit different now. Life circumstances are also different. But I think as far as just getting kind of a high-level point of view of what I am drinking and what I can actually drink through, I think this is a pretty effective way. One other caveat you could say too is that in this one, so drinking reports and stuff like that. So this past year I've done drinking reports on Dai as well as a bunch of EWUs. And so that is certainly going to skew the report a little bit. But I think, those things are, they're big, but they're not big enough to, I think, overall impact the high level point of view that we're trying to look at here. So basically been logging these since some point in August. So with the over 1,000 sessions logged, I think I am still the most prolific user on my.teadb. That's about 3.5 sessions per day that I am getting. Some days are more, some days are less. The days that are more generally are because I am having tea with other people, and so I'm logging those. Sometimes the sessions could be as short as like 2 steeps if it's something that I don't want to get through. Check out the 2 steeper where I talk a bit about like teas that I kind of enjoy it just for a very limited amount of time and I don't feel the need to get through it. And one other article that I did write last year in 2025 is Living Your Best Tea Life article. And that basically is a collection of thoughts and reflections that I'd had from over a decade of tea drinking and just sort of getting back into it. And so one could think about the speed test in my.teadb as me being a little more intentional about trying to drink through the teas that I actually like the most. And so drinking more of like the teas that I may have looked at in the past as special occasion teas and whatnot. And so in 2019, when I did that measurement, I drank raw pour, I think it was something like 63% of the time. Oolong was like 25%. So what does it look like now in basically from August of 2025 to July of 2026 when I'm recording this? Well, it turns out that raw pour continues to be the most consumed tea type for me, but it is even more consumed now. So something like 80% of my sessions are raw, and which is distinctly more than back then. And oolong has gone from 25% to under half that, to about 11%. So I think in the end, oolong for me is a casualty, and for the most part, I would rather actually drink raw. Ripe is also surprisingly pretty present here. It's about 9%, so I drink it just a little bit less than oolong. But I like ripe tea. I think it's a nice change of pace, and depending on the teas, it can be a nice capper to the session, especially if it's something a little bit older too. So within the category of raw too, one of the cool things about my.teadb, just going into your sessions here, is that you can also examine just kind of by brand what you are drinking the most of. Perhaps unsurprisingly this year it has been Dai, and I suspect that's going to continue to be the case even in years where I'm not necessarily focusing on a lot of Dai content. If I were to estimate the amount of sessions that I may have not done otherwise because I was doing tea reports or whatnot that focused on Dai, it'd probably be something like 80, I would guess. So that would, because it's 1,000, it's pretty easy math. That would reduce the percentage of sessions by about 8%. So we're looking at a little bit closer to 15 to 20% there. Shagwan in this report was 11%, and about 16% is boutiques. I think this is a little bit of a shift from my drinking back in 2019 too, where I was a little bit more boutique focused. I think one of the main reasons I do drink Dai more these days is the prices aren't too high, and I think it's a lot easier to buy the higher quality stuff. Back then it was not so easy to buy beyond like B or C tier factory tea. And I think nowadays, especially if you are willing to spend the money, then you can definitely get some higher quality stuff, especially at places like Quiche Teas, but even at Taobao, I think is considerably more user-friendly towards a Westerner than it was then, although, those things are constantly changing back and forth. So, by the time I release this video, things might not be so hot there. So yeah, and I think in the end, I'm less precious about it. I'm more okay discarding teas if they're not totally working out too. So yeah, I drink, I think, a bit more tea than I did back then, but I'm also stopping the sessions earlier just based off of what I actually want to do and listening to myself and trying to dictate things on more of like, what do I actually want? What am I going to enjoy the most here? Okay, so yeah, those are some reflections. Shout out to the Denster, the creator of my.teadb. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will see y'all next time.